Welcome to The New Voice in Coaching. My name is Connie Jacob. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here, and I am also with...
Hey, my name is Abe Brown, and I'm CEO of Certified Flourishing Coaching. And Connie, you're so amazing. Thanks for letting me be here today to share and to listen and to respond.
Well, I'm excited about today's topic because we are going to talk about creating from constraint.
What?
In a world where everybody is talking about what they don't have right now, Abe, what's the world like at this moment?
Yeah, you know, it's a very interesting time because really, from a global perspective, we've never had kind of more available resources and more wealth, really. Not that it's well distributed, definitely. We've got to work on that. But nonetheless, we have a resource-rich world, and yet people's perception is, I don't have enough, right? So, and that applies both in our personal lives and in our businesses. And hey, number one, we want to empathize with that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I wake up and look at the bank account or look at my situation and think, I just need more, right? Yeah. More money, more help, more resources, more whatever. And so that's a normal sort of part of, I think, the human journey and the business journey for sure.
It really is. And right now we're in a state of inflation. There's lots of layoffs. There's all kinds of things going on in our world. And yet we have such opportunity. And I wonder if we could talk a little bit about what's the opportunity beyond when there isn't a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what's really important, I think, in all forms of business is to realize the greatest businesses that, you know, you see often were birthed in resource constrained environments, right? And so that's where we always get these stories of, you know, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in their garage or somebody in their basement building something, and they didn't have a lot of resources. Matter of fact, it's kind of a funny story, but, you know, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, when they were starting Apple, they actually went to Hewlett Packard and even Atari, and they're like, hey, you know, we'll come and work for you. Just pay us our salary. We'll give you all of our IP. And they just needed somebody to pay their own salary so they could eat. And they were rejected. And now, of course, as we all know the story, Apple has become this massive global behemoth. So I think sometimes, you know, we set ourselves up for failure with a false expectation. I'll use a funny example. I'm married, and anyone who knows my wife will tell you for sure, dude, you married up. Do you know what I mean? She's just a far better human being than me. But, you know, if I come into that marriage with this idea that she should be doing this and she should be doing that and she should look like this and she should act like this, and then I come into the reality of marriage, that's going to be a hard wake-up call, and I'm probably not going to be the most pleasant husband to be around, right? Because the problem was not her. The problem was my wrongly placed expectations. And I think that sometimes we think, hey, I've got a business, I got a dream, I've got an idea. Where's the resources? And yet I think what we need more than resources is resourcefulness, right? We need the capacity to think about what are ways that I can innovate my way to success and leverage the success of one little thing to build something else and then to build something else, right? Which taps into another principle, and I know you've talked about it a little bit, and that's this idea of constraint. And I think of it like delayed gratification, you know, constraint and delayed gratification. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. So what has constraint taught you about success in business or in life in general?
You know, if we have too much, at least for me, when I have too much, I'm comfortable. I'm not creating at all. I'm depending on those things. Like Netflix takes me an hour to pick a movie, and then I'm too tired to watch it. I don't know if anyone
No
else
wonder there's like a billion titles there, right?
So I can't pick anything. It's just too much choice. Whereas when I think of piano, like the piano only has 12 keys, different octaves, but 12 keys. Mm-hmm. And you think about all the compositions that have been created from just 12 keys. Or, you know, when the Crayola crayon box back in the 70s, it only had 3 to 5 crayons.
Yeah.
And how much more creative was I as a child than with 136 now?
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the story of my life. You know, you feel like I got a craving for a chocolate bar. And when I was a kid and had no money, you know, you go into 7-Eleven and there'd be like 4 choices, right? And if you had the money for one, then that was great. And now there's like 150 different chocolate bar brands and sizes. I mean, what society needs 150 different chocolate bars? We do. You know what I mean? And so you'll stand there for 5 minutes making a $1.79 decision to buy your chocolate bar, right? It's just ridiculous. And you think to yourself, man, I just wasted 5 minutes of my life. then I'm going to actually pay to ingest something that's also going to hurt my life, that chocolate bar, right? And it's interesting because sometimes the less options, the better. I also think that part of it is this idea of delaying your gratification because, we have resources, but if that farmer takes all of the fruit that he grew or she grew this year and eats it all and doesn't save some as seed to plant the next year, then what's going to happen is they're going to end up next year looking at that same field and now they've got nothing to plant. And so I think it's so critical to get into this mindset of actually living with constraint because that allows me to not burn through everything that I earn or everything that I make so that I actually have something to invest, right? And, hey, listen, it's tough out there right now. Inflation's out of control. People are really struggling. Business owners, small business owners in particular, are really wrestling. They're having to make tough choices. And so the idea of constraint, delayed gratification is not a cure-all. Don't hear it like that because fundamentally there's bigger problems that we need to solve. But what you've got to do is control what you can. And one of those things is delaying that gratification and living a bit constrained.
Yes. And it's interesting how when we have a lot, we consume a lot. I love what you've said about saving a little bit for the future, for the next business. Instead, we seem to think in our society, in our culture, we're told to create and consume, instead of create and create, which I find very interesting. I wonder what that would be like if we took on that type of a mindset.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the shift has to occur, right? It's in the level of the mindset. Like the question is, are you willing to step into this mindset that says, I can be creative? I know for years, I told myself a story. Nobody told me this, really. I told myself a story that said, I'm not creative. And my rationale for that was, well, I don't draw, and I'm not a painter, and I'm not a dancer, right? And yet I'm very musical. I write songs, I play, I sing, not very well, like nobody's lining up to pay for my stuff, but that's a form of creation. I'm also a big writer. I write a lot, I speak a lot, and people have paid millions, and I made lots and lots of money doing that over the years. And so why do I say that? It's because though my creative expression might be different from someone else's, I had bought into a mindset that says, well, I'm just not creative. And I limited myself for years. Finally, I've been able to shift that mindset and say, hey, I am creative, but it's not going to be to your expression. You have a beautiful, unique expression of your own creativity, as do I, and as does everybody who's tuning in today. And so I would say, could you start celebrating yourself? Can you stop beating yourself up? Stop believing the imposter syndrome. Stop, saying you can't. And just start looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I'm creative. I've got stuff in me. I'm going to find it. I'm going to bring it to the surface, and then I'm going to celebrate it.
Yes. Apparently 75% of people don't think they're creative.
Yeah. Well, and I personally could even sort of cut them a big free pass and not blame them because the media has done such a great job. Oh, the creatives, like the Silicon Valley types, the Steve Jobs, and no disrespect to those folks because those guys have crushed it, but that doesn't mean I'm not creative, right? If I'm not building an app, it doesn't mean I'm not creative if I don't launch a company that, has cloud servers, right? Like we are all creative and we've got to stop comparing our creativity to others. You can't do that in the same way that if you were comparing your kids to each other, you're only going to destroy their ability to grow, right?
Yes. So. I know one thing I did in my journal one morning. This was all based on actually after one of our certifications because we focus a lot on strength.
And creativity.
Yeah. We do. And I listed out all of my strengths. And then beside every strength, I listed out, well, what's the opportunity connected to that strength? That's being creative. That's problem solving. And it opened up my mind to what is possible.
Yeah. And it also makes me think about a chat you and I had last week about how often people are, feeling like they don't have any creativity. And yet if you just take that word creativity and you replace it with innovation, all of a sudden now it becomes different, right? For whatever reason, we have equated creativity with like an artistic form of creativity. And that's wonderful. We need more of that, by the way. But really creativity and innovation are the same things. And so when you look at it in a business lens, being a business innovator and constantly having that growth mindset, that says, I'm not fixed, my business model's not fixed, I can continue to evolve, I can continue to grow. So, not to turn this into a sales pitch at all, but we actually in our coach training have a certified creativity coach. And Connie, you wrote most of that. You're the facilitator for that training. Tell us about that, and why would that be helpful for a coach? What would a coach get out of taking that?
Well, what I love about that certification is the experience that people are getting, and the breakthrough. The number one thing we keep hearing every single time we offer it is people walk away with a breakthrough, with a problem that they've been trying to solve, whether they're a coach, whether they're a business owner, whether they're a parent. Somebody walks in wanting to become a certified flourishing creativity coach, but they're walking away with answers. And I think you just got to be in the right environment and with around the right people, asking the right questions. And when you can do that, your own creativity just comes to the surface naturally. And that's what I love about that certification.
Yeah, I mean, I love it too. And I get the privilege to talk to folks who have taken it, and it's just been a game changer for so many people. And so, hey, any final thoughts about this idea of creativity and in this tough economy and tough world right now, what we can do to generate just a little bit more, like maybe one action item for somebody?
Well, I wonder what would happen if you sat down and wrote out what your strengths are and what opportunity waits for you. And not to put any red tape around that. Like, allow yourself to imagine, because oftentimes we'll think, well, that can't happen. But if we could just let that go, like tell it to sit down just for a minute and write down what are some opportunities. I wonder what's possible if we could just start there.
If we could just start there, I wonder what's possible. So, hey, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to A New Voice in Coaching. You can check out what we have on certifiedflourishingcoach.com. And if this episode has been meaningful to you, please, give that subscribe button a good pound for us. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share. But also let us know in the comments below, what are some topics you'd love us to explore going forward? Because we're only where we are because of your support, because of you. So many of you have gotten around us and supported us and helped us to get to where we are today. And you got to keep leading the way for us so we know how to serve you. So let us know in the comments below what you'd like us to chat about here and how we can support you better. Thank you so much for tuning in.